Welcome back to Building Beyond with Tecton. In this episode, we're going to go over the we're going to reflect back to the name of our podcast, and we named it that. So, Building Beyond with Tecton is not only in construction, it's building characters, building knowledge, building all of that. So on this subject, we're going to talk about building characters.
I don't believe that you can build a character. Like, it's something that happens naturally in each individual.
Well, nature can be altered by someone else's experiences or by your own experiences. Nature can be pointed in one direction or another.
But are you really building character, or are you just trying to guide that character into taking better paths?
Well, now you're asking if one that's leading by example can take credit for that building of a character. And I don't think so, no. But one can take credit for being that example, that influence.
Yeah, you can influence.
But can you take that credit?
People, but you're not building their character. That's something they form. That's who we are. That's
characters are built.
That's what it divides us from.
I think characters are formed as our childhood kind of forms our characters and the characteristics that we portray. Like even acting out and stuff, like maybe traumatic things that happened to us in childhood would make us act out as a teenager because we need attention.
With that being said, though, what can you change the character? Say, take a troubled child that grew up in a shitty household.
Yeah.
And later on in life, they choose to go the different way and be a good person, I guess, and be better than what they grew up in.
I would argue that someone in their lives showed them that there was a better life outside of the troubled childhood.
That's what I'm saying.
And yes, I absolutely believe that situation or that person can take credit for that. And I would call it building characters. And before you jump me on this, Butters, children. How much can a children's character be blamed on or not be blamed on their parents?
I think 100%.
I'm with Lehigh. I think pretty much 100%.
So building characters is real in by that very principle.
I think you can influence a character that's already going to form naturally. Beliefs. So character is, to me, is the very essence of somebody and who they are. Like, you're not going to change the way they try and be funny, or the way that the things that they find funny, the things that are them is their character.
Is that
you can influence their beliefs, you can influence their thoughts, you can influence the person, but you cannot build their character. Their character forms, and I understand that it kind of forms. A character is a wide variety of who somebody is.
Characteristics or the individual.
I don't
traits of that person,
right? Like what he finds funny, the way he is, the way
that can evolve, though. So we're talking about change.
Can evolve, but it's not something that you build. It's something that you get and you develop.
Building, like, one can make an argument that the word building in this scenario is synonyms to the word evolve.
Well, is a character actually who somebody is as a person? Like, that's how I view it. So to that,
yeah, absolutely.
Then there's certain characteristics about someone you may or may not like, and other characteristics that you love. So, but those characteristics can change over time by influence. But to Butter's point, like, are you talking about like we're born funny or we're born not funny?
No, it's something that we personally, we're born with character at a very young age, but the way it's evolved, it does have something to do with influence. I'm not going to negate that you can't influence a character to be a certain way, you know. But my point is I think a character is more of your bloodline than your influence. The way I see character,
more of a DNA,
is more of a DNA. Your character is more of a DNA.
So undo my scenario here. So I feel like I went through a huge character change or evolution from honestly year 21 to 24 and even beyond still today by self-study.
I think you can build your own character.
I really try to learn myself. If something happens I don't understand, I really dig into my own character and say, okay, well, what happened there? Is it something I need to repeat or get rid of? And so I feel like it changed. I feel like my character changed during those years.
Well, you changed it. So you can force yourself to change your own character, but in the introduction, it was building characters, plural, would suggest that I can take somebody and build their character. I can take somebody and I influence their beliefs and their actions.
To teach somebody, they have to be open to it. And I absolutely believe if somebody was open to us building their character in a certain direction, not that we're promoting that or anything, because I love the people that are naturally who they are. But I think influence and could absolutely.
Well, I think the influence changes characteristics a little bit, but I kind of think that character in and of itself is kind of fundamental and individual in how people get identified. Like, that's a awesome character. Like, he's likable, people like him, but where did he get those traits? Like, you can have, like, say us. Some people like us on the job site. Some of the PMs like one, but doesn't like the other maybe, or doesn't feel the same way about the other. That's due to that one's individual characteristics that melds better with that other person than the other one. But influencing them, I think, absolutely happens. I looked up what characteristic means. Like, the adjective is typical of a particular person, place, or thing. Like, that's typical of that person, whether his character was altered by his parents or whether that child or that person had his own character, that just the things that happened or transpired in his life molded him into how he applied those characteristics or things like that brings that individual's identity to himself. And the noun is a feature of quality belonging typically to a person, place, or thing, and serving to identify it. So our character is how we are identified.
Yeah. And I do believe that character is by choice. Like you our background, our religion, I believe we're a small percentage, us four coming from our background, we're a small percentage that doesn't have the victim attitude towards that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so therefore we were able to not be influenced.
But to Nephi's point, where did you get that characteristic? Where did that come from? Because I feel like that came right from your dad. It didn't come from your mom. Your mom is able to hold grudges. She's able to do all these things. But dad, no matter how he got attacked from his siblings or from other people, he always forgave them. That was a characteristic that we inherit. I know I inherited it. I inherited those
DNA.
Kind of characteristics from him, whether that was his influence and watching him do it, or it's in the DNA. And I think...
the realization that I wanted to partner with you all in particularly, it was my realization of DNA, right? And I think that children either get most of their dad's DNA or most of their children's DNA. And I think we see that in our large family.
Yeah, you mean their mother's DNA, not their children's DNA.
Damn it. Anyways, so I believe we can see that with our own siblings. Who gets what, you know?
Yeah.
And
to an extent. because there's some of us that are pretty different and view things a lot different too.
Well, right, but if you took in principle characteristics, we're either portraying
not your
dad's,
beliefs in my.
We're either portraying dad's
of
DNA or we're portraying mom's DNA. I believe, and honestly, I targeted people that I thought portrayed dads, because that's where I. And that being said, I have characteristics that I know came from mom.
No,
Absolutely, and I embrace those. Just like I embrace the characteristics that come from dad. One is aggressively trying to get to the root of the problem. Aggressively is the key word there. I think that totally comes from mom.
Yeah.
You know, I do believe that comes from mom, and I love it. I think it gets down, and then the characteristics that we got from dad comes into play, trying to fix the issue. So
I do that too much.
I embrace that.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I embrace that a lot. Now, let's talk a little bit different about different characteristics. So one of the things I want to ask everyone here is, do you like the characteristic that's likable?
I mean,
or do you like the one that just gets results that is not likable? I know there's people that are both, but like, what would you take?
That's likable or gets results and not likable?
Yeah.
In business, 100%, the one that gets results. And if I don't ever plan on like doing business with them and stuff, or feel like they're gonna come to me for a handout at some point, which I've had those friends. I've made those friends that have this super likable character, and they get to know you, and you're just friends at the time, and you think you know them. Well, the next thing you know, they're doing all this bad shit, and they're asking for money, and they're gonna use it for bad shit. You kind of bites you in the ass there. But if I'm just looking to like make a new friend or something, I could see myself favoring just a likable character, because in a friendship, like, you don't really care about results unless it starts affecting you personally, and I'm kind of selfish that way.
I would argue that I only like people that get results. I don't necessarily like likable people, because likable people are worried about what people think of them.
Yeah, but you say that's in business.
See, I don't believe that likable people just care about what people think about them. I think the most likable people are the ones that really don't, and they're just cheerful. They're just jolly because they don't worry about what people think of them. So what kind of results are we talking about? Like financial results?
Results in anything, honestly. So here's...
I don't think
I ain't gonna name the names,
when they're super
but
insecure.
there's a particular friend that's been a friend with me for 15 years, and he happened to marry the sister to my wife, and might as well name names now. But basically, he's super likable. Anybody come up to him is gonna like him, right? But for 4 years now, we've been almost weekend friends, like, because of the family situation. And here comes the situation where now he is unrelentless trying to get me to borrow him to hard money land his spec home. And for the life of me, I just tell him, look, I ain't doing that. I can't do that. I ain't going to compromise my company like that. I mean, you're talking $500,000.
Yeah, plus you end up owning his house.
Yeah, and so this is actually a realization recently where it's like, wow, I liked you, but like that likable character, is that what it always ends up in to do? Like you're saying, end up asking for favors. Like true friends don't ask of favors.
It's bit me in the ass before.
I think true friends give.
Two friends give when the other needs it. I mean, I have good friends that have never asked for anything.
If you're a good friend, then
I have friends that have never asked for anything, and I have friends that are always asking for stuff. But one of my characteristics is to not shut that person out. Like if they truly need something, I try not to help them if they won't help themselves. And at some point, if I see they won't help themselves, I stop helping them.
Yeah.
But I'll always help people. And there's
yeah.
one other thing, character development can occur in various ways, including through experience, relationships, and personal reflection. It often involves a combination of internal and external factors such as overcoming challenges, learning from mistakes, and gaining new perspectives. Additionally, character development can be influenced by cultural, societal, environmental factors. It's a complex and ongoing process that can lead to personal growth and change over time. So that's not indicating that you have your character that much. It's more based on the experiences of your life that develops your character.
I would say this about that message there. We're all fucked. If the environment's forming our character, it's going to shit.
It doesn't look like it.
Well, whatever.
We don't allow...
The environment's melting away.
The environment's not melting away. That's just a lie people tell you. And if you believe it, that's a flaw in your character from some other previous
environment.
thing that has happened to you.
Surrounded with.
We actually barely got the real first snowstorm of the season in middle of January. Tell me that's not because of global warming.
Oh, well, if you want to go down that track, then I might just either be silent or keep it casual and say, I don't believe in global warming.
Is worth dignifying with a response.
So speaking of that, I seen on Tucker Carlson, there was this, I can't remember his name, is a Chinese scientist that was actually on his show, and he was talking about what global warming really is and how big of a propaganda that it really is, just to try and take control of the way we heat our homes and stuff. So anyway, we'll get off that global warming. You started it, and I'll argue it all day.
Dan Pena, I don't know if you guys know Dan Pena. He's a immigrant that came to America, figured out how to get rich in oil, and then he moved over to the UK, bought a big castle, whatever, and he teaches people to do deals, and his YouTube videos are great. He's an aggressive motherfucker. He is so mean. Anyways, he just says the point to global warming, just because I brought it up, I got to settle it in our own heads. And that is he made the perfect point. He says if global warming was real, no insurance company would insure any structures along a coastline. Absolutely, they wouldn't.
That is a very good point. Because why would they?
And he had lovely, colorful language. I like Dan Pena. But anyway, so off that subject.
Off the climate.
And back on the character. What I heard in that is you form your character.
But it can be formed by different scenarios.
Be influenced.
So how can this...
says it can be influenced. But it can
but how can the building beyond with Tecton not influence characters?
Well, it can influence. It can't build them.
What about the aptitude test, Nate?
Influence
you're
and building
for
is two
people that
different
already
things.
Have certain characteristics, and that's the whole purpose.
I think
of
the attitude test.
Aptitude
I think
test.
the attitude test, by the way, should be something we invest in soon. But I think that the character, not attitude test, the character test.
Isn't it called aptitude test?
Oh, aptitude?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the technical terms.
Yeah.
To make us all feel good that we're not getting a character test. Anyways.
I mean, I own my character. I built my character.
Well, I
was influenced.
We do, but like if you ask any old employee that's looking for a job to take a character test, there's a lot of employees get all emotional. None of your damn business. If I fit, I fit. If I don't, I don't. But that's current. So, like, I believe if you have the time, patience, and money to spend with any employee, you can make him into what you'd like him. But taking the aptitude test is something that you know how to deal with them,
where to put them, how to deal with them, what kind of
state of mind they're in, all of the above. Really, it avoids the long-term frustration, patience. So I don't really think that avoids building their character. It just lets you know the information behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Influencing their character.
No, it's just so that you can place their character. It's not to influence yourself.
So you can identify their true character.
Their strong points. And then it's
identify their true character, because there's a lot of fake people out there. Let's get real. That will act one way in front of certain friends, and we have a nephew that would come and help us when I was working for Lee and M. Great kid, 99% of the time, super cheerful, super happy, super willing, and he gets around a certain group of people and goes off the rails. And then he comes back and it's see the same thing, but also see certain things that he's trying to do to impress his friends, even though he's not around them. Anyway, long story short, he gets with them, does some really bad shit. Now he's in the lockup, but his
juvenile penitentiary.
Yeah, his true character come out, I believe, and he has admitted the part that he's played, that it's only his fault, and it was completely against who he truly is, and determined to make it better and do it different. That's his true character. I think he got the wrong influence on it. Yeah, but he reverted back to his true character.
I talked to him.
Himself.
Yeah, but somebody else with a different character may not have. One of his characteristics was to partake of things that got him in trouble. So that's what he has to adjust.
I disagree with that.
Humanity.
That was not characteristic. I talked with him many times because our sister and his mom wondered if I wanted to take him under my wings and stuff. And I talked to him probably 4 or 5 times over the phone for sometimes hours, And he's that kind of a likable guy. He's full of wisdom. He knows shit, and he knows how to take responsibility. And the only thing and not to put anybody under the bush or under the whatever the hell.
The bus, typically.
Under the bus. There we go. Not under the bush. Well, the bush is fine, too.
Yeah, the bush would hurt worse. Yeah. The briar patch. Don't throw me in the briar patch.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is the environment when you're not busy, which is 90% of the time is home.
Well, and let's identify one other thing with that young man is there's no father figure in his life through most of his life, because of where he came from and the duties his dad had in that religion and stuff. That's something that none of us can really identify with or speak on with experience. Because
I don't fault him at all, other than the responsibilities of actually partaking of that. His environment led him to that.
We stopped and seen him.
His fault.
We seen him the other day.
To me, is from this point forward. What he does with what he has from this point forward is all on him. That. It's all on him.
I agree.
He can't be over his shoulder in the past and say, "Well, I'm the way I am because of." And that's kind of the stance that we took. That's part of our character, our DNA character, in my opinion. We didn't victimize ourselves given our past or anything. We come out here at a very young age. I was 15 and I had some good influence. I did.
I don't mind talking about our past, our religion. The problem is that I grew up in amongst a group that was either believing in it or being victimized by it. So I've always, in my mind, I always think when someone's asking me about it, they're asking me in a victimized
Oh yeah, that used to
Kind.
bug me.
And so I prefer not to talk about it. But if I could get around the fact that they're just curious or they just want to know about my past, absolutely, I could talk about it. But the victimizing, it is so overwhelming. Like it's just, it's one of the most cankerous characters.
But is it because you don't feel like you was a victim, and so why should you take that on?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we forge our own paths. It's like that's the opportunity we have as like free Americans. We forge our own path, and victimhood gets you nowhere.
Yeah, and the truth of it is, the truth of it is the leadership was corrupt. But that's about as far as I'm going to go about the
religion, whether the facts it was right or wrong, or all this. Like,
because we are who we are because of what we went through. Like,
no, absolutely,
and
not
but
what we went
at the same
characters though.
Yeah, exactly. At the same scenario, we are who we are because of how we handled what we went through.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this thing said.
You use the past to remember and learn from. Never forget your past.
Right. No, never.
But learn the lesson and move forward. Don't let the past, especially if it's a bad situation, don't let the past influence the tomorrow, the future. And that's why I say, like, from what happens at this point forward, it's on him.
And I 100% agree with that.
Well,
it goes back to my theory, like anyone who leaves that religion, like if you had something against them before, at least like my personal guideline is like there's a point after they left and they go through something and learn how to live in life outside that religion or learn what they can do or what they can become, then at that point, then it's the same thing. What you do from here on, like what you done before doesn't matter because this is a different world when you leave that behind.
That society. Yeah.
Learning how to live in society.
Yeah. I said so all the attention turned to me and then I forgot what I was saying. So I digress for a minute.
All right, Soup, what do you think?
I think it's all about how we take all the stuff that we've been through and like what we choose to do with that. When we let things get in our heads that like, oh, I've had a lot of stuff bad happen in my world, but it was just on how I fought with myself, on how to find positive ways to make a bad thing be positive.
Yeah. Like I remember what I was gonna say. So I have one person that looks up to me pretty well, and he asked me one thing, Nate. Like what's one thing you could tell me that helped you out? And I said self-study. You know, and so he really has been going down a journey of his own way of self-study. And he comes across these books that like he can see relative terms in these books to his childhood and why he's the way he is. And then he can just dwell on why he's the way he is instead of like, oh, this is the why it is. Like, I just need to change this, you know, like, and so that's some form of victimizing. Like when you realize something, all you need to do is change or like focus on evolving out of that characteristic, like, and hardly even speak a moment on the negatives of your past that got you where you're at.
Right.
At some point, you got to recognize that, right? Like if someone did you wrong and you're holding that grudge, like Nephi with Mother Nancy, at some point I have to agree that I'm holding a grudge.
You know? Yeah.
That's called jealousy.
Yeah,
right. But at some point,
that is a characteristic.
When you see what went wrong, acknowledge it and move on. That's my
exactly. If your biggest thought is how do I fix this bad thing that happened to you or in your life, if your biggest thought is how do I fix it, that's going to take over and that's going to improve
Yeah,
you as a person.
That principle goes so much into our line of work, construction. Like if you nail a wall wrong, get the damn Sawzall, get going. You already know what you did wrong because you know you did it wrong.
Yep.
Like move on. Yeah. So like that's a good way to take, or that's a good example of a principle working in life and in your work. Just
absolutely
fix it and move on, and don't ever be afraid. This is something that whether it's right or wrong, I've found good success in it. Don't be afraid to admitting to your customer that you did wrong, because all they want to see is production. All they want to see is something being fixed. And 100%. If you're already doing it, they're not going to be mad that you did it wrong.
Right.
But if you just go tell them I did this wrong, I don't know what I'm going to do, then it's like, you're putting that responsibility on me, no.
That's one of the things that I always try and say is like, it's not like we don't screw up. Screw ups happen, but we figure out the best way to fix them immediately.
You think it's human instinct, because it's so hard to admit to you're wrong. Yeah, and it's a prideful thing, but finding excuses for wrong things is like everybody's go-to. Like, you have to be pretty. That's a great think point. Of an excuse in their head, they're gonna tell you. They're gonna tell you the excuse.
I think the excuse should come if it's asked.
Yeah.
Like, and I wouldn't say excuse. I would say reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Well.
But to try to present the excuse or the reason why you fucked up before it's asked, I think is the wrong way to portray it. And that's when it's portrayed as
that's when you kind of look like a little bit guilty maybe of making a mistake, is if you try and justify it before somebody says, well, why did you do that?
Yeah, and irresponsible. Yeah. You look irresponsible.
That's the difference between a justification and a reason in my mind in some cases. But even the answer can sound like either sometimes.
I got a scenario. It's perfect for that. And it's about our buddy. We went over for that first building over there. We went over like where the girder truss needed to hang, so there was enough room for the bathtub upstairs, and it was drawn on the floor, and they go ahead and put it 5.5 inches to the other side of the line, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of them just admitting they screwed up and just getting it fixed, they spent like a half hour, 40 minutes, like trying to come up with why it happened.
Yeah.
And it's just unproductive and inefficient. Stuff like that's going to happen all the time. Well, what made me the most frustrated with the feller is he didn't admit wrong. All he was coming up with like, well, you did this, and we thought you said this, and just like,
so it doesn't matter,
right? It gets to the point. I've told them many times, people under me many times, like, I don't care. Like, let's just fix it. This is how we got to have to.
You know what? Like, if you have to, but then if you have to give excuses, at least be in the middle of fixing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that 30 minutes that you talked about.
That's what what was frustrating me.
That's when you got mad, is during that 30 minutes. So it's like, move on, say what you want to say, but make sure you're already fixing the issue.
Yeah.
But I do find myself, like, I have to work on myself to not instantly want to tell an excuse, like to a GC absolutely. If something goes wrong. There,
natural
to go and tell them. You start out with, well, this is what happened. And it oftentimes, and most of the time, it feels like an excuse. And that's how you start. Before you even tell them what went wrong, you start with an excuse. That I have to work with myself to not go and do that.
That would rub anybody wrong, I believe.
And that goes back to your point where, like, you go tell them that this went wrong, and then if they ask why, then you bring forth the reason, or because then that turns your excuse into a reason. When you start with it, it's an excuse.
If you start with I fucked up,
it's a reason.
Cool.
Yeah, you got to start with the way you're going to fix that problem, and then tell them this is what happened.
In the first place, why are you telling the GC? Because I think that is a key
because you can't hide it.
Well, you don't need to tell them unless it's affecting something else outside of your circle.
Exactly.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And
It'll affect schedule.
The worst is if they caught it, then they already know, and they're the ones that brought it to attention.
Yeah, but as long as you're already fixing it, they're probably most likely, unless it's
there's been a lot
the gardens guy, they're not going to care as long as you're already fixing it.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Like if it's caught by an inspector, obviously they get the list. They're like, well, we're trying to move forward, and then it kind of affects the schedule, and you got to tell them. But I think to walk up to somebody and say, I fucked up, put you in a vulnerable state that draws people to like you, so they're automatically like.
It's called leading from behind.
Yep. They're like,
no place to lead.
I want to help you not, feel so bad about it, or let's just get it taken care of. They're instantly not as mad about it if you first admit I fucked up.
Yeah. That's the most effective way, is leading from behind.
Mm-hmm.
I would say. Another subject, I don't know, like that was a great, we can carry on, but like procrastination.
No.
I
Talk
promise you,
about characters.
I have such a different, I think I have a difference of opinion on that. I don't mind procrastination.
I don't either, especially if it doesn't affect it.
Well, I think procrastination is arguably part of your gut. Not letting you do something that you, one, don't have all the knowledge to do it, or two, you shouldn't do. It's like that company that went out of business. Like, we procrastinated potentially on signing a contract, which could have got us in the mix of that.
Yeah.
Why did we procrastinate? God knows. We just decided to procrastinate.
Yeah.
So I would say procrastination isn't something to hate on.
Well, I agree with that, and it's kind of an encouraging thought to think, because you get after yourself for procrastinating little things, which, I mean, maybe you could, like, is it procrastinating cleaning your garage, or procrastinating, doing something around the house, or something that would help make things easier or processes easier. If you're procrastinating something is going to improve you, I think that's something that I'm guilty of, where you don't have that excuse necessarily. But to the same point, oftentimes we don't even see how that product we procrastinated is so much better because we procrastinated, because more things came to light. Thus, we wasted less time.
Procrastination.
I love that principle, and I have a great scenario that has to do with building beyond with Tecton. Like we've been wanting to start this podcast for months. Up till just the other day when we actually started it, I thought the professional that knows where to put it and how to put it and does all the editing was going to control where to put it all. But no, up till then, it was this person that we are getting rid of, that we're letting go, that was going to be in control of that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like an aha. I'm glad we procrastinated.
Yeah.
Because getting the content out in the right way from the beginning is important. And it wasn't going to happen.
But we didn't know that. Well, then when we found out, would we have said something and taken action?
But it might have been like we might have lost some ground in our efforts. So, that is a good example. Again, the procrastination, like I've had it too many times where the procrastination saved us on either monetarily or just making up ground.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time hating on something that helps me.
And I'm procrastinating helps. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I haven't missed out on wealth or building of something because of procrastination. But the truth of it is, how do you find that? Like,
how do you identify it?
How do you identify that? I honestly think that our procrastination on buying a shop or renting a big long-term shop for the full prefab that saved us a lot of money and a lot of headache.
Absolutely. And procrastinating on that is probably the best story that we could share.
Exactly.
But there was always a reason though, like, and whether they were excuses in our minds, there's something to be said for what started this segment that Nate brought up. Procrastination helps, and that I love that example.
I would like to say that it's probably nice that there's a doubter amongst the four of us.
Yeah, and I'm glad to be that.
Do you want
doubter.
to identify that
doubter? Somebody's got to ask our questions.
Somebody's got to take the credit on this spot.
Well, to this situation, like before, we thought it was the trend of framing. The truth of it is, there's so many expenses and investment that goes into that. We know one of our competitors that we've done work for. They're struggling because they invested millions and millions of dollars into that. And now what the market's doing does not support prefabbing offsite. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. You can't. It costs more to do that. It's more logistically.
Too much air being shipped across wherever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like your price 70% air. When you carry
I figured
those things.
I tried to do the math on this, and it's closer. I mean, really close. 75% of less loads would be taken to a job site in a different method, such as component cutting or something.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
than the full built wall.
Yeah, the component cutting can be.
And to the same thing, we went and seen our good friend over in California that builds the prefabs, the TGI floors, the EWP floors.
Truss floors.
There's even more air there, and getting the price that he gets paid for those floors to be built in sections was almost more than we get for labor only on a job. Like his price was insane. And how does anybody budget that? But he's out by the bay. He takes all this stuff out to the bay. It's all big, huge money where it's like
union.
Didn't he say he only makes like 10 or 15% on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
Like imagine if we took the amount he's getting paid for that and just went and did it on site.
Yeah.
We'd be making 40-50%.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just the thing in this industry. Everybody wants the speed without having to pay for it.
But to that, couldn't you take what he was doing and not put it together? Just cut all the components and have that packaged, and you deliver it, and then it's all cut. Like you're still not getting a saw out.
It takes it down from probably 75 to 80% air to probably down to 30%
or less, because that kind of depends on your packaging and your strategy, which we obviously will have to get into all that kind of stuff as we build that out.
Right, and I love it. Another thing is why doesn't prefab offsite work? I've thought about this
because it works. Sorry,
108,000 square foot building that got built right by our job site. It took damn near 500 semi loads.
Yeah, and that was one of the drivers. I heard him say that, and they were constantly there. And there were some loads that had to go back, and I get it. Like you have mistakes; they happen. And take some back, but
I'm talking about the root of that problem. I think it's because I think that prefabbing off-site will work when the engineers and the architects design the building to accommodate it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
I agree with that.
I think it has more to do with who pays for it. Like you can do a building much faster, but the
people are willing to pay per the design. So what I'm saying does cover that part of it. Like if it is started out with speed in mind, using speed from offsite construction in mind, yes, it will cost more. But it'll be designed that way, and so that they have to pay it, right? So that's why I say it does include.
But theoretically, the return is they pay a little bit more for way less time on the job site. And the theory was that you could basically spend a lot of time building that building out before the concrete was even done. But if you can't do that, then it is not economical. It seems to me.
In a perfect world, then the plan would be the Bible, but it's not.
I think there's so many
changes.
innovation situations right now that people are trying to push that won't become effective
for a long time.
I want to say in our career
that some certain methods that are being presented right now, and as it relates to AI or even technology and the offsite construction and stuff like that, a lot of those things are going to fail, and I think that prefab and offsite is one of them.
Yeah, I think that it's important to know where you're at in the position, and to say that a company where we're at trying to create that offsite experience, we're not there. Number one, there's way bigger companies that have the backing to support losing money for an X amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they get their systems in place and all that stuff.
It's like that gentleman we met that has a full prefab. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Down there.
Down in California.
McCoffey. Gary McCoffey?
Yeah. So, like, to his point, it's $10 million to set up what he does. And if you don't have what he does, like even investing $10 million, he still needs 5+% more money.
Yeah. Yep.
And that matters in construction. 5% matters.
And he was based off his stories, he's having to go and beg the general contractors to take his product because there's so much more, but he couldn't come down any less. Like, everybody wanted what he was doing, but nobody wanted to pay for it. And
he has, and I think he's in the forefront of the industry of being offsite. But what does he have to be able to do it? The money backing. He has companies, the biggest residential builder in Europe backing him.
Plus, and there's probably a lot of people that have big interest in real estate that are trying to donate to his developing of this offsite construction throughout his years, because how many years has he been doing it?
Yeah.
He had relationships, millions and millions of dollars probably got donated to the research and development of offsite construction. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a failure ultimately.
And until they get developers, architects, and engineers on board. And in that order.
Exactly. If they would implement it and say, okay, this is the type of construction and it's to save time, then they would, if it goes from that side, then there's going to be phases of you have to get a contract in time to get all of your I forget the word of your AI stuff and what Justice does. Sorry.
Oh,
the design
building
work,
design.
The building design
prefab
work
design.
That takes so much, and everybody that's involved in any pre-construction, no matter whether it's component cutting or prefabbing walls or floors, just like when we went and met with that gentleman over in California that done the floors, his first warning to us was, don't underestimate the design team. This takes a lot of work to get this right. And that's where you can just,
I would say 75% of Justy's time, our design gentleman, is because it don't make sense. He's trying to convert an architect's and structural engineer's drawings into prefabbing.
But how does that go towards getting the digital or what do you call the CAD files? If you can get the 3D models from the architect, and it goes back to your point, they got to be on board with it.
That's for accuracy. That's not necessarily going to help the 75% of what I'm talking about. It's just like floors, structural designs don't match up. So it's like we have to make a tiny little panel here and a normal size panel here because nothing, like the structurals aren't matching up. And like, so that's the importance of like, if the engineer and architect was on board with this, just his time and designing the prefab would be 25% of what it is.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. But what Justy does actually is what we're trying to do by getting the architect and engineer together.
Right. Yeah.
He's doing their jobs for him, meshing it together.
I think it's going to be, I think it is the way of the future. I just think it's going to be a lot longer than our competitors are thinking. And I think that them investing millions of dollars in a prefab situation right now is wasted money.
I agree. I mean, that's a big accusation, and I agree with that.
That's a bold statement saying that it's going to fail altogether. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of money.
I don't think it's going to fail altogether. I think it's just going to be 20, 30 years before it is an industry standard. Right now, it's a convenience that costs more money.
But you have GCs that believe in it pretty wholeheartedly, that really want it on their job site, but they've never been a part of it.
90% of GCs have nothing to do with the developing, and they get this project after the developing decisions are made and the architect and structural engineer's done. Yep. So they don't even have influence. Even though they like it, they don't even have influence.
Yeah,
the people that are giving them
to the people that do it.
Right, but the people that are giving them, this is my argument. I don't blame the GCs for loving it.
That's just
my argument is the people that are giving it to them are wasting money.
Yeah.
And so it'll take them down. Okay.
Yeah.
Good job.
And that is exactly what I mean by fail.
They're having to eat the profits.
The failure will come individually.
Yes.
The process itself is not going to fail.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to take 20, 30 years
to evolve.
Because, I mean...
And it's like, because they're not on board like the architect, and because to your point, that would make it 70% more easy.
Because nobody's willing to pay for what it really needs to evolve instead of stagnatize or not.
They would find...
If there was more money, if the developer had to spend more money, like if it was talked about, if the developer cared about time.
Yeah, but the problem is the developer would, if he would consult a framer ahead of time, but he don't. So everything is already
predetermined for you in your profession.
They need to consult.
I'll bet
not just the framer, the plumber, the HVAC, the electrician. So you build this all together, and with the understanding, okay, plumber stuff got to go here. The electrician needs to make sure it's big there.
Yeah. To your point, I sat in on a class at the construction or the home building deal in Vegas a couple years back, and there was a case study that if the developer and architect would consult I think it was like the 4 main subs. It was the concrete, the framing, electrical, and plumbing. If they would consult those 4 main subs,
I think it would be
during design.
And plumbing, not electrical.
It was HVAC, not electrical.
Yeah.
During design, it would save on average a project 20 to 25%.
They don't even have to have that particular sub on board. They just have to know what that sub needs or what that industry needs. That's why they have electrical engineers and mechanical engineers.
They specified in the study that does include the price to have a sub do the value engineering. To consult.
So actually have a professional do the value engineering, whether they own the job or not.
Paying that professional the consulting fees would still save the project 20 to 25%.
I believe that because you're dealing with RFIs and screw ups and problems. Clear till the job's done and like, all of a sudden then the doors were wrong or all of a sudden, like you built the whole damn thing out. There's 100 units in here. And now the doors are wrong. And I mean, the submittals were done and everything, but there was no communication.
Yep.
Changes are crazy, especially like they set something together. They hire a GC. They push it. Go, go, go. and then you're 3 weeks, 2 months into it, whatever, and they start hitting you with changes like door sizes, tub sizes, room sizes, vaulted ceilings,
All that
where
could have
on a
been
flat truss,
prevented. Yeah.
Have you ever,
manufactured truss, you know.
going back on the subject that got us down this, which was a great
kinda-
rabbit hole, honestly, you know, we're in construction. I think we all spoke very much well from experience during that. But the subject of this rabbit hole was procrastination. So have y'all ever intentionally ignored the procrastination desire and ended up being fucked because you ignored that?
Absolutely. Because there's something about procrastination that instinctively keeps you from screwing up.
Yeah.
And it's an instinct.
It's the same concept as just think about what you're saying before you say it.
I'll tell you the biggest monetary screw up I had when I didn't listen to procrastination is paying Grant Cardone too damn much money.
Mm-hmm.
Because honor them. They're great at sales, but it's unethical. Trying to push, I think it injures people.
I do
physically,
too.
And maybe it's monetarily, but you could argue that being physically, trying to push a product on them that you know they can't use to its effectiveness.
Well, a good example is like stock trading. When somebody tries to sell you an insider trading thing, I'm victim and guilty of that because that doesn't work effectively unless you have all the time and a lot of money.
And all these guys that are preaching do not procrastinate. Do not procrastinate. And so it's like, it causes that, like, I just remember I signed to a $35,000 over 2 years product with Grant Cardone because I was told not to procrastinate. And that procrastination that I was thinking about was going to screw me. You know, and what screwed me? We got that product. And that product is centered around salespeople. Like, love him or hate him, the people that follow his ideology on sales sell more. They do. They're more effective at selling. Are they loved? No. But they sell. Yeah. And so I bought this sales program, this sales training program. For what? My workers that are out there pounding nails that never in their career or in the next year or two are going to put that sales learning that they're learning to work. Like, I just wasted $35,000 right there because I didn't listen to procrastination.
I was sat in with you on that, and I thought that there's value I still take from it. So, like, even though it was maybe overspent,
but that's me and you.
Yeah.
That's mine and your characteristics.
Yeah,
is to learn. To learn, or like, we do very well at getting the value, even if it's not the value intended, we still get value from a fucking
there.
Yeah. And that's a trait of the success.
There is a flip side to procrastination. There's a flip side.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little
how
bit.
many stocks that I have looked at their course and thought I would love to be in that. You know, I kind of keep an eye on it and see what it's doing. It goes up a little bit. Yeah, I need to get in this. And I just don't. Like,
you know
why
what?
do I not? And then a year later.
Here, don't tell us about that. Don't tell us about that because we got another episode coming up that we're going to carry on this. Because we've covered the positives of procrastination. A whole nother 30 minutes, we could cover the negatives of procrastination. So with that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week on Building Beyond with Tecton.